Good morning, everyone. My name's Gabby and I'm part of the sales team here at Coral Expeditions. Our head office is based up in Cairns. I've also got Michael, one of our guest lecturers, joining us today, who I'll introduce to you shortly. He's joining us from cold Canberra, so he's trying to keep warm down there. But basically, today is a Kimberley webinar, as you've all registered for. Some of you may have already booked and some of you may be interested in going to the Kimberley. So hopefully we can answer all of your questions today. The webinar is being recorded, so if you do miss out on any of it, we will send a recorded version to you after today's webinar, and you can share that with friends and family as well. So keep those questions in mind and we'll have a section for that at the end. Let's get started. So today's focus is taking on a journey with Coral Expeditions to give you an insight of the Kimberley's vast and rugged coastline, which has been shaped by the powerful forces of nature. The Kimberley is steeped in ancient cultures and it's one of the most beautiful and remote wilderness areas in the world. So for those of you that are new to Coral Expeditions, we have operated for 40 years and always with a single purpose, which is to take small groups of like-minded travellers like yourselves to remote places with our expert guides, warm Australian hospitality and guidance. So to begin our Kimberley journey today, I'm going to give you a sneak peek at what you can expect from one of our experienced expeditions in the remote wilderness of the Kimberley region. So as I said, that's just a sneak peek at what you can experience on one of our Kimberley voyages. Really, the videos don't do it justice. I was lucky enough just to return from a Kimberley voyage and it's truly spectacular. It's a bucket list trip. It's going to be the trip of a lifetime and you just can't really justify it until you actually get there, as I'm sure Michael will let you know as well when he gets to his part of the presentation. We do have a couple of videos throughout today's talk. If you are having problems with them, don't worry. We will send, as I said, a recorded version to you, which might load a bit better on your device. So in the 90s, Coral Expeditions, we completed our first Kimberley voyage as a first ever expedition cruise operator to explore the region. So out of the 40 years that we have been operating, 30 of those years we have actually been exploring this Kimberley region. So being one of the original Australian flagged expedition pioneers, this has allowed us, we think, to curate the perfect expedition cruise the Kimberley has to offer. We have our expert guides and our crew who will share their expansive knowledge and their passion for the region from many years of experience. And in the Kimberley, seeing it so vast and remote, knowledge and experience is everything in this region when you're visiting. So all of our vessels, they are Australian flagged, which means we spend more time in the Kimberley. We have the best local knowledge, and we don't need to spend your valuable time travelling international waters like many foreign lines do. Our vessels are operated by Australian and New Zealand crew, and you'll get to experience the ultimate warm Australian hospitality throughout your voyage. So whether it's enjoying an ice cold beer or a nice glass of wine on Veranda Beach, which is like this image here, or it might be something on board. So on board our vessels, we do encourage a natural Australian style service and an open interaction between our guests and our crew. So there's a few different options. You can go up into the bridge, like the top right image here, have a chat with the captain, go and have your morning cuppa in there. And then you can even do an engine room tour as well, find out the workings of the ship. You'll get guest lecturers that will do their daily presentations as well. And we do have an open galley policy. So if you want to pop your head in, see your dinner being prepared, you can also do that. So there's lots of options to interact with our crew and other like-minded travellers on board with all our beautiful outdoor dining areas. So our 3 Australian flagged expedition ships, they are designed for the Kimberley region and expedition cruising. So they all feature wraparound decks, private balconies on some of our staterooms as well, and plenty of outdoor dining spaces so you can enjoy those famous Kimberley sunsets and sunrises. But the shallow drafts and high movability of our purpose-designed ships, this lets you get closer on those coastal adventures to explore all those sheltered bays and hidden inlets, which are inaccessible to a lot of larger ships. So this is Coral Discoverer. Now, Coral Discoverer is our yacht-like vessel, which has 36 staterooms and a maximum of 72 passengers on board. So Coral Discoverer is now 15 years old, did just undergo a refurb in December. So she has had a couple of refurbs over the years, but Coral Discoverer is loved by our loyal regulars. She has that intimate feel and the small numbers as well. It's truly a great experience. So Coral Discoverer is domestic focused, so obviously does the Kimberley, but she also travels around other parts of Australia, so Cape York and Arnhem Land and the Torres Straits, then heads over to the Reef as well, the Great Barrier Reef, as well as the Tasmania season each year. Now this is Coral Adventurer. So Coral Adventurer started operating in 2019, has 60 staterooms on board and a maximum of 120 passengers. So there is a very familiar design across all 3 of our ships. And as I mentioned, they are purpose-built for expeditions. So we do have some large suites on board Coral Adventurer and a range of lovely indoor and outdoor dining and seating areas to enjoy all those beautiful views along the way. So outside the Kimberley season each year, she heads over to Papua New Guinea, Japan, Philippines, and other parts of the west coast of Australia. Now this is Coral Geographer, and Coral Geographer, as you can see, looks very similar to the Adventurer, so it is the sister ship to Coral Adventurer. However, we got Coral Geographer delivered to us in March 2021, so our newest ship to the fleet. Also has 60 staterooms with a maximum of 120 passengers on board, and always does the Kimberley. So all 3 vessels of ours go to the Kimberley every year. However, after the Kimberley season, you'll find Coral Geographer travelling to other parts of WA, the south coast of Australia, all those hidden islands down there, New Zealand and the sub-Antarctic as well. So all of our rooms are outward facing, so you will never miss out on the view. Some of them will just have a porthole window, others have a picture window, and some will have balconies. So they're purpose-built for those subtropical climates, plenty of outdoor alfresco areas. You'll find you won't spend too much time in your room. You will be out enjoying that fresh breeze and taking in all those beautiful views. All of our rooms as well on every ship, they're all twin share, and we do have the option for solo travellers as well. Now these here are our explorers, or we like to call them the safari jeeps of the sea. They are our trademark vessel. They're really, really awesome, and that's what we do our shore excursions on. So basically they're purpose built for our shore excursions. So they have a specialised hydraulic launching mechanism. They're actually loaded onto the back of our big ships, and you just walk along a ramp. So straight out from the dining room, basically, straight onto the Explorers, and you'll be lowered down to the water, and then you'll be off on your adventure under 5 minutes. It's really unbelievable. And the same when you get back, you get loaded onto a ramp and then straight up to the back of the ship, and then you straight off into the dining room to have your nice cuppa. So as I said, in the water, you're off with under 5 minutes. And we can seat the ship's full capacity on these as well. They are very comfortable seats. So on Coral Discoverer, we just have the 72 passengers, but for the larger vessels, we do have 2 Explorers, so you can all go off together still. No one's left behind, everyone goes off at the same time. As you can see, open views, so you're never missing out on the view. You get a great view from wherever you sit on the Explorers. There are clears that come down the side as well, so if we do happen to run into some bad weather, we can pull those down. You can still see a great view out through the clears too. A roof over the top, keep you protected from the sun. There is a toilet on board as well, and audio equipment too. So you do get a very clear commentary from our guest lecturers like Michael and the rest of the team and our expedition team on board. And when you're arriving to a beach landing or something, there's just a ramp at the front of the Explorer tenders. It goes straight down, and again, you just simply walk off a ramp, and same getting back on. So pretty amazing. We do use these out on our other trips like the Great Barrier Reef. It's a good snorkeling vessel too. Now, these are our inflatable Zodiacs, which are really fun. In the Kimberley, we will use these a couple of times. So it's just providing another exciting and flexible option for shore excursions and navigating narrow inlets and waterways, places where our Explorers can't always get into. But in the images here, you can see one of the Explorers on the right is actually at the Lassipede. So you'll cruise through the lagoons, which Mike will tell us about shortly. And then on the left, you've got over there near Horizontal Falls, probably on the way to Horizontal Falls, and they've spotted a little local friendly shark there too. So really good way to get up close with nature, and you'll see that lots of nature throughout the Kimberley. Or I should mention while we're on this slide as well, that's what you'll go through Horizontal Falls on. And again, Michael will touch base on that, but super fun, exhilarating ride through the falls. So we do have guest lecturers on board, and to Coral Expeditions, we were one of the first cruise operators to employ interpretive guides on our cruises, and it's still a tradition that continues today and will continue. So each trip will include a mix of our full-time guest lecturers who join the expedition team, and then our special guest lecturers who are chosen for their specific local knowledge. So they're immersing our guests on the unique wildlife in the environments we're visiting, and really that's what expedition cruising is about. So they'll go with you on the shore excursions, point out things you're seeing along the way, and they will also do lectures in our bridge deck lounge throughout the journey as well. Now we have our expert guides, so our expedition team, and Coral, having guided expeditions in the region for over 3 decades, we certainly know the nooks and crannies that a lot of others don't. But our expedition team, they're providing their local expertise with a strong understanding of the unique landscapes, the flora and fauna, and Indigenous cultures of the regions that we're visiting. So our passionate expedition leaders, they're on board, they take our guests, they take you on every excursion, and we don't hand over to land-based tour companies. So we always focus on more time ashore as well, and we will aim for 2 shore excursions daily wherever possible. Now, the shore excursions will always vary. In the Kimberley, you might do a cruise, or you might do a beach landing, and you might go and check out the rock art sites or something like that. The Kimberley doesn't have a huge amount of walking involved, so the longest walk you'll probably do is maximum 1.5 to 2 kilometres around the rock art sites. We would recommend as well that if you're a little bit wobbly on your feet, take some walking sticks with you as well. It just helps you because there's a bit of uneven terrain on there. All right. Now I've got another video here before I introduce you over to Michael, who is an expert on the Kimberley and joining us live today, as I mentioned, from Canberra. I'm just going to play a short video of one of our longest serving expedition team, which is Jamie Anderson. If you have travelled with us before, you're probably very familiar with Jamie. He has been with the company for over 20 years now, and he is a true Kimberley pioneer. So Jamie is one of our most experienced team members, and this is just a video of what he has to say on his take of the Kimberley.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jamie, your expedition leader, giving you the final call. You'll need hat, sunscreen, water, as it will be warm. Optional footwear, folks. Thank you. I'm James Anderson, mostly called Jamie, and I've been in this role for around 17 years with the company. Back in 2002, I was teaching, and I was asked by a friend of mine if I was interested in doing a job. I was fed up with teaching, and so I said, I'll give it a go. He put me on the Kimberley run for the first time. People travelling the Kimberley will see a massive diversification of not only animals and plants, but also the rock systems. Geology is huge in the Kimberley due to its age. It is the most remote wilderness area left in Australia, really. And luckily, it's still like that. It's not overrun yet. More and more vessels are coming in, but at the same time, when it comes down to it, there's still plenty of places you can go without seeing anybody. The remoteness makes it one of the most magnificent trips around. You can't get bored anywhere that we go. Everything's new. The weather changes, the light changes. You've also got the marine side of things. These are the whales and dolphin. Also going up into river systems that nobody else goes into. It is the most unique reef in the world. It comes out of water, exposes itself twice a day, and it depends on the tidal level as to how much of the reef is exposed. So what we've seen on our cruise this particular trip has been just extraordinary. The Indigenous populations, there are three different groups that we go through. We go through the Wunnabal Gambara people, we go through the Warra country, and we go through the Bardi country. They departed basically in 1942, and so we're lucky to go through those particular different areas, and it's nice if we can see them along the way.
So as I said, it's a pretty amazing part of the world. And yeah, Jamie does a really good insight on it as well. So we're going to hand you over to another amazing guest lecturer. Before I hand you over to Michael, he's going to touch base on all the icons you can see in the Kimberley. So mainly focusing on our 10-night Kimberley cruise, which is either departing Darwin or Broome. And it departs April to September. And as I mentioned, all three of our vessels go there every year. So we also do have a couple of other trips to the Kimberley as well. We do have the Best of the Kimberley and Tiwi Islands, which is another 10-night. This one is more of an added bonus, really, because you're getting the Tiwi Islands included in that too. So it's just another option. You still cover the main highlights of that 10-night cruise that Michael's about to tell you about as well. You will get the opportunity here as well to visit some local traditional and contemporary art galleries, and you can purchase art directly from the source as well while you're up there on the Tiwi Islands. And we have one more, which is the Kimberley Icons. So Kimberley Icons visits Ashmore Reef and the Rolly Shoals as well. So this one's a bit longer, it's 12 nights. And again, between Darwin and Broome, it's just departs in September though. And this is on board Coral Geographer or Adventurer, our largest ships. And this is just, again, another option that will visit all those Kimberley icons, but then you'll also get the added bonus of heading out to the reef and doing some snorkeling as well. All right, Michael. So Michael's just let me know that he's, I think, done about 50 trips to the Kimberley now he's up to. He's also done some pretty other amazing stuff, but I'll hand over to you, Michael, and you can fill us all in.
Thanks, Gabby. Can you hear me okay?
It's loud and clear.
Excellent. So, yeah, good morning, everyone. My name's Michael Hermes. I've been travelling up to the Northern Australia since the mid-1980s. My particular interest is in the human history of the Kimberley landscape. My background is in archaeology particularly, but I've also lived in Indigenous communities across the top end, and so I have a sort of a working knowledge of contemporary community issues and linguistics. So for our trips along the Kimberley coast, there's generally at least two guest lecturers, one with a zoological or botanical bent, and then I pick up on the Kimberley as a human landscape. So I'm interested particularly in this area, in the rock art, and in the early and contemporary history of that landscape. So we look at the Indigenous history. We also look at the early explorers, European explorers through that landscape, and more recent history as well with World War II. So it's a fabulous trip. As Gabby was saying, I've done 50 trips now, probably, roughly, and every one of them is different. And as one of our captains said a few years ago, in the Kimberley, it's all about the tides, and in Tasmania, it's all about the winds. So we're governed by what we can do by the tides in the Kimberley, and but we always get to those iconic sites of the Careening Tree, Careening Bay, King George, Umari, and Montgomery Reef, Yowaj. So there's always those iconic places, and horizontal falls, of course. We get to those ones, but because of his Coral Expedition's long history on the Kimberley coast, we've got hundreds of places to choose from. We're the founding touring company along that coastline, and all the other companies come in our wake. But we've got a fantastic resource on the ships. So if the tide's not right for this, it's going to be right for that, and it's all down. It's all very well planned that there's no downtime. So we have lectures every second. Well, me particularly will have lectures roughly every second day, and often in the heat of the day we'll do that, and when it's cooler we'll get out and get amongst it, get on the shore. So, Gabby, do we go through the slides? Would you like to do that?
Yeah, perfect. So, yeah, if you want to start with King George Falls, Michael, that would be great.
Yeah, okay. Well, King George, this is in the Queenie country in the far east of the Kimberley, a spectacular landscape here. We've got 80-metre waterfalls. Depending on the time of year, this looks like it might be roughly June or July when it's down to that point. Earlier in the season, it's more spectacular, but it's really the geology in this landscape that is just awe-inspiring. It's a very beautiful place, and we get in there generally early in the morning. Last time I was there, we saw a dugong up back near out near the outlet for King George River, which was exciting. But we often see a range of birds of prey here, the sea eagles and the osprey. But a spectacular. Often it's depending on the direction you go, this is where we start or where we finish, and either way, it's a spectacular time. Sorry, so yeah. So Vansittart Bay. This would be in Warrnambool country. This is a wonderful area to study the full history of the Kimberley, the human history. We've got the earliest rock art sites here. This is a Wandjina figure here, particularly from the later period, but we've also got Gwion, or people might know it as the Bradshaw tradition here as well. And we've got World War II history, as you can see on the slide on the right-hand side there, with that the old C-53 that was lost during World War II. A fantastic place to see the full range of the history of this remarkable landscape. So Mitchell Falls, this is an option that guests have that we sort out in the first day or two. This is an optional extra, and some people will choose to go up onto the escarpment and check out the Mitchell Falls, which is a fabulous. I've never heard anyone come back disappointed with that experience. But alternatively, I lead some rock art expeditions in this area. So either way, it's a fabulous day.
And I'll just mention, sorry, Michael, while we're on this slide, if anyone is interested in doing this, you can book it on board. It doesn't need to be pre-booked, and it's approximately $695 per person. As Michael said, he hasn't heard anyone come back that's had a bad experience, so I was lucky enough to do it myself as well. It's truly incredible to see the Kimberley by air as well, and just go for a nice swim at the falls, and it is doors off. So yeah, you'll get that really exhilarating ride. And take a lanyard or something you can attach to your phone or your camera. As I mentioned, is doors off, so it can get quite windy up there, and they just like you to have your camera secure.
Yes, they're expensive helicopters. You think they'd be able to afford to make some doors for them? Anyway, the Process Creek. This is a phenomenal area. This is we get to explore the mangrove systems here. This is the mangrove systems in the Kimberley are very, very complex. People from down south might be familiar with maybe 1 or 2 species in the mangrove systems where they live. We've got 30 or 40 species that live in this intertidal zone on these great mud flats. And Process Creek, this has been named by Philip Parker King for Crocodylus porosus, the estuarine crocodile, and I've never been in there without seeing a few crocodiles about, but also terrific for birds in here, the honey eaters at different times of year amongst the flowering mangrove systems, and the birds of prey too. So we've got the full range of geological history here. So behind there you've got geology that's the oldest geology in the Kimberley. And right in front, we've got a landscape that's developed in the last 2,000 or 3,000 years with the rising sea level and the stabilisation of these coastal landscapes by that mangrove system. A terrific day. We usually get out there nice and early in the morning and hear the bird song. Very lovely. King Cascade. This is on the boundary between the Warrnambool and Warra country. On the King George River, the Regent River, Prince Regent River. This is so this has a long history in Indigenous history as well. A complex story that I won't go into now. But when Philip Parker King, a lot of the Europeans, the early Europeans, when they're on this coastline, I think of William Dampier and others, and Philip Parker King were desperate to find fresh water along this coast. And Philip Parker King found this cascade of fresh water that it continues flowing right through the year. So a very precious resource for those early mariners. And there's some fabulous stories of them getting up here and collecting water, because the alternative was to head back to Mauritius or to Timor, and Mauritius is held by the French at that time, and Timor was notorious for its dysentery and malaria, so they were desperate to find fresh water. So this was a very important part of the early European exploration of this landscape, but also a fabulous Indigenous story that I'll share with you on the ship.
And this is also an opportunity to have a Kimberley shower. I mean, we do provide hot showers on the ship, but if anyone's after a nice refreshing shower, as you can see in the image, the explorers pull right up, and there's a couple of opportunities to do that. So make sure you pack your swimmers, and the crew will have nice dry towels for you after your fresh shower.
Careening Bay. This is another spectacular. This is one of the icons of the coastline. I don't think I've ever been to the Kimberley without going to this place. Beautiful boab tree. So this tree was a substantial landscape tree in the 1820 when Philip Parker King arrived at this point. He was told by the British Admiralty to mark the landscape, to indicate to the French particularly that they'd been there first. And so it wasn't just an act of graffiti. You can see the name of the ship, the Mermaid, that's been carved into this tree. He also left a brass plaque on a nearby tree, and he wrote in his journal, I've left a brass plaque on the tree, which I'm sure will last for posterity, but I've marked the tree as well, but of course that won't last. Well, the opposite happened. The brass plaque vanished in the 1840s or thereabouts, but the tree's still there and still bears the mark of his carpenter's markings on the tree. The trees have a fabulous biogeographical history too. So these trees are related to the baobab trees of Madagascar, and it's an intriguing issue that we talk about on the trip. How these trees, how this species got to the Kimberley coast from Madagascar, and didn't get to India, for instance, which has a very similar climate, and it's a bit of a puzzle. Anyway, we'll talk more about that that story at the time. But yeah, we have a lovely day here. We get out there early, and timing's critical here. So sometimes we get there quite early in the morning because otherwise you can get stranded by a dropping tide here. So sometimes we have a bright and early start. But being on the beach at 8 o'clock in the morning is a lovely experience, and that'll give us time for lectures later in the morning. Yeah, an iconic tree and a lovely spot. So the Montgomery Reef, as Jamie was saying, it's hard to describe, it's hard to photograph, but you don't forget it. It's an extraordinary place. We have a range of we see sea snakes out here. We've had crocodiles. There's all sorts of. It's a very diverse marine system below water, and the birds come out at low tide from that island. You can see that's the mainland in the background under the word Montgomery. They come out from there and feed on this great expanse of reef. A really remarkable site, and it has a very interesting. Its indigenous name is Yowage, and I'll tell the story of that place as well. It has a rather tragic story, but a very memorable day. The day we get to Montgomery Reef. Horizontal Falls. It's another to do. We always get there. And of course, this one is tide dependent as well. You don't want to get here on a flat tide. So our operations in this part of the Kimberley coast are determined by when it's going to be the most lively for people. I mean, you can do a softer option too if you're not really up for the white water. You can go a bit later in the day and still have the same experience. Well, a similar experience, but not. It's maybe 3 out of 10 rather than 10 out of 10, depending on your particular bent. Yeah, some interesting geology here as well, and we have a fabulous day there. Nares Point is some of the most remarkable geology you'll want to find on the Kimberley coast. This is where the Kimberley Craton met the Australian geology. They're pushed up together, and you can see this great arc of rock has been pushed up where the two plates have met, and some phenomenal photography through here, and also back at Horizontal Falls as well. Some spectacular geology here. So if geology is your thing, we've got it in spades on the Kimberley coast. The Lassipedes, this is the place where we're going to see birds in huge numbers. The boobies, frigate birds, all manner of marine birds out here. It's a very low island. You can see it's, well, you might be able to guess it. It's just a coral. There's a limestone base underneath it, but it's essentially a coral debris island with a little bit of vegetation. And this is a fabulous breeding place for the brown booby. And we get here. This place is dependent on the winds and the wind as well as the tides. But we generally get there, but not always. But it is an awe-inspiring place. Yeah, well, we have, depending on the time of year you go, we have the whales here on the right-hand side. We get the whales up around July, June, July. So when people ask me, well, what's the best time to go on the Kimberley trip, I usually say, well, it depends really what you're interested in. If you're interested in seeing the whales, July maybe is probably the best for you. If you want to see the waterfalls at their most spectacular, you might choose earlier in the season. But a lot of the things that are iconic about the Kimberley coast are available right through the year: the rock art and the geology and the wildlife. We see plenty of crocodiles. Some people might say too many crocodiles. And yeah, we get the migratory birds. We get the rainbow bee eater comes and goes. We've got the sea eagles are there 24 right through the year. They're sedentary, but there are migratory birds as well, and we see them at the Lassipedes depending on the time of year. Yeah, so it's yeah, and also another question I get is, so which way should you go? Should you go from Darwin to Broome or Broome to Darwin? Is another question I frequently get, and I don't have a preference. I mean, I find that either way is spectacular. To end at Umari is spectacular, but then again, this is King George, or having it as the initial one, that's fabulous as well. So I don't have any strong view about which direction to go.
Thanks, Michael. And you're not wrong there. You either finish with a highlight or start with a highlight, no matter what way you go. So you can't go wrong. Yeah, it's beautiful. Right. Well, thanks so much, Michael, for your insight. I'll get you to hang on there and we'll do some question and answer very shortly. But that just gives everybody hopefully a bit more of an insight on the main highlights you can expect on our 10-night Kimberley cruise, which you can see it's certainly an amazing part of the world. I know I've said it before, the photos don't do it justice, but they really don't. It's a bucket list, once in a lifetime opportunity. You've got to get over there. If you're thinking about it, just do it. It's absolutely fantastic. So we're coming to the end of the webinar now. It's a good opportunity to ask any of your questions that you might have about the cruise or something specific you want to ask Michael. Just pop them in the chat section and we'll answer them shortly. To give you a moment to do that, we'll finish up with a video and then we'll get into the questions after. Perfect. So we'll go on to some questions now. As I said, pop them in the chat section. We will try our best to answer them today. If you think of something after the webinar or we don't get to your question, you can contact our reservations team. You can see their email address on the screen there or their phone number, the 1-800 number. Or, of course, if you've got your preferred travel agent, please reach out to them. I'm sure they'll be able to answer any of your questions. If not, they'll reach out to us. So, Michael, we've had someone come through the question about the wet and dry landings on the Explorers. Are you able to explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So we usually, well, no, let me start again. We expect to have a wet landing, generally speaking. Sometimes we'll have a dry landing, and that's, it's a lucky thing. So plan for a wet landing, and so what we recommend is wet shoes, not thongs. Thongs can get stuck in the sand and can cause problems. So thongs aren't a great idea, but some sort of wet shoes, things that you'd be happy to get wet. And when you get up on the beach, you can swap over, and we'll have little hand towels and dry your feet and put on your boots if you wish. Some people stick with their wet shoes because they're only, walking a few hundred metres, and they'll be adequate for that. But I'd plan for a wet landing, and if it's dry, then you're lucky and you don't have to worry about drying your feet or whatever. But yeah, so some sort of footwear that won't come off if it gets stuck in the sand.
Yeah, perfect. And is there a chance to go swimming on the Kimberley cruise?
Sometimes. So that's there. So you did see in some of the vision there was people climbing up on a rock ledge, and they were going up to a place called Red Cone, at the end of Red Cone Creek and Ruby Falls. We do sometimes have an option to swim up there. It's a bit of a scramble, and it's not for everyone to get up there because you need to climb up above the height of where the estuarine crocodiles can get. So when you climb up, you're safe from the estuarine crocodiles, and it's safe to swim. And sometimes we may have a swim at Mica Beach occasionally, depending on various factors. It's not. We don't do a lot of swimming, but it can occasionally. We will if the tide. The other thing about getting to Red Cone Creek is you have a very particular tide to get in there up to that cliff. So yeah. Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, and as I mentioned in the webinar as well, there's a couple of options for the Kimberley shower, as we like to call it. So you can get up the front of the Explorer and the Zodiacs and go under Amari Falls or King Cascade. So definitely take your swimmers with you, and we will provide beach towels as well for those opportunities if it allows us to. We had. I think someone, Jeffrey, just asked about hiking boots or trainers for the landing. Michael did just briefly cover that a bit. So there's not a great deal of hiking involved on our Kimberley voyages. The most you might do is probably 2 kilometres, correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, and sort of rocky or sandy terrain. Of course, if you feel more comfortable with your ankles supported, wear your boots. And if it is a wet landing, you can just take them off and put them back on again. But reef shoes or Tevas and Keens, those sort of things generally seem to be the best footwear. Yeah. And if you got your walking sticks too, I thought that was a great idea, Michael, people with their walking sticks, just to give you a bit more balance on the sand and the rocky terrain.
Yeah, sure. That's a good idea. Yeah, the longest walk we do would be at Careening Bay, and that would be it's probably about 1,500 metres around. So some people do that in their wet shoes, and that's adequate. But if you need particular support for your feet, then boots would be the go.
Yeah, perfect. We have someone asking, what's a typical timetable for a day in the Kimberley?
Okay. Let's say 7 o'clock breakfast. 8 o'clock departure on the Explorer. We'll go, let's say we're at Vansittart, we'll go to a rock art site. So we'll get there at 8:30 or 8:45. We'll spend maybe an hour and a quarter on shore. We'll come back for a cup of tea at say 11:30, 12:30 lunch. Say 2:30, there may be a lecture from me or from the naturalist, and then there'd probably be an excursion in the afternoon as well. So to another, if it's Vansittart, it may be another rock art site there, or a beach walk. There's some lovely beachcombing beaches there, and then so 6 o'clock there'll be drinks. At 6:45. The expedition leader will come and tell everyone the plan for the next day. 7:30 would be dinner, and after dinner there'll be a documentary. It might be David Attenborough in the Kimberley, that sort of thing. And so that's a rough picture of a day, how it would look.
Great. And you certainly don't go hungry. There's plenty of food on board.
Sorry, I forgot lunch. Yes, did I say lunch? Oh yeah.
Yeah, you said lunch. Yep, that's. You build up an appetite after doing all this exploring.
Sure. Yeah. There's no lack of food.
Yeah. You can take. Sorry.
I wish it was less tasty. I'd be. it'd be better for my waistline, but you know, the chefs look after us fabulously. And actually, on the last day, all the staff line up, and the greatest applause is for the chefs generally.
Yeah. The food's incredible, and you will get beer, wine, and soft drinks, some spirits as well, with lunch and dinner as well included. And yeah, there's tea and coffee always available. There's snacks that you can take on the shore excursions with you. So as I said, and Michael said, you never go hungry, and you'll probably come back with a few extra kilos, I'm sure. But in the rooms, sorry,
just on that. The other things, there's not a lot of downtime on the ship, but there's a library on board.
Yeah.
And the two bigger ships, the Geographer and the Adventurer, they have gyms on there, so you can go and get on the bike or something if you need some energy to work off.
There's always stairs as well, isn't there, Michael?
Oh yeah.
So speaking of stairs, we do recommend and advise that you have a reasonable level of mobility. So we aren't wheelchair accessible, and you do need to be able to get up and down the stairs in the event of an emergency. So yeah, but I think that's all we've had questions for today, Michael. So thanks very much. And as I mentioned, if anyone thinks of anything after today's webinar, just reach out to our reservations team. You've got the details on the screen there, or our website, or have a chat with your preferred travel agent as well. They'll be able to help you also. So thanks again, Michael, being very knowledgeable, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day, and stay warm down in Canberra.
My pleasure. Thank you. I think it's above 0 now.
Good stuff. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. We'll send a recorded version out to you after today as well. Thank you. Bye.